Hello and welcome everyone back to another episode of the College Sports Hive. Once again, Leaf Tulane. I'm Scott Stevens. We are here with you to preview Alabama at Arkansas, a huge matchup in the SEC. This is a team of these are two teams that are ranked inside the top 20 of the AP poll. Alabama sits there at number 6. Arkansas is there at number 20. The two highest ranked teams in the SEC. A lot on the line here for this one in terms of SEC prowess and things like that, and really determining contenders from pretenders, I would like to say, in the SEC as a conference. So let's jump right in. And first off, let me just get your thoughts quickly about this matchup off the top of your head and some things that stand out to you.
Yeah, these are two pretty hot teams. I mean, Alabama's 13-1 in the SEC, and Arkansas has built themselves a little gap and moved into second in the SEC at 9-4 in conference, 17-5 overall. And these are two teams that have a lot of talent, and they were built kind of differently. Nate Oates in Alabama has a lot of fairly highly recruited players, and Arkansas is built around one highly recruited freshman, Moses Moody, and then a lot of transfers, and they've kind of coalesced into a nice team. And I think the biggest takeaway I've got is it's two up-paced teams that play a bit of defense, and that is something you don't see too often from the SEC. Some teams, such as Tennessee, are all defense and very little offense, and many are a lot of offense and very little defense. And these two are the two best balances of it. And I'm excited to see this matchup, and I'm excited to see a lot of these athletes on the floor together and see what happens in this game.
Yeah, this is basically like the showcase of what to expect out of the SEC come NCAA tournament time. We've highlighted some of the struggles with Tennessee and Missouri. We're not going to discount them for where they're at, but they are still somehow ranked inside the top 25 with their struggles recently. And so this is a game where this is a big proving ground for Arkansas in particular, and a real showcase for Alabama to show just how good they are and if they are really that much higher, much more ahead of the competition in the rest of the SEC. So let's talk records. Alabama is 18-5 overall in their year. They're 13-1 in conference play. It's currently clearly standing at number 1 in the SEC. Arkansas is 17-5 on their season so far, 9-4 in conference play. So a few more losses, but they find themselves in second in the SEC. So this is a battle between first and second place. We love to see those. Alabama's ranked 8th overall in KenPom rankings, so that's 2 spots below their AP poll ranking. They're 24th in offensive efficiency, but second in defensive efficiency. So very clear that they're balanced, but they also excel defensively, which is a formula that I think is very sustainable for success. Arkansas on the flip side is 24th overall in KenPom efficiency, 38th overall offensively, and 20th defensively. So pretty much the exact same thing, just a little bit further down in terms of the rankings and a little bit less, and for lack, not consistency is the wrong word because they're clearly consistent in what they do, but just as I would say there's a tier 1 with Alabama and then there's a tier 2 here for Arkansas and where people view them as two different teams.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way of putting it. I think Alabama has shown that when they put their mind to it, they can excel defensively. And that was the big concern because you knew they could score. They run and gun. They shoot a lot of threes. And they showed, and I remember one game specifically, they were struggling against Kentucky in the last 5 minutes. That Kentucky scored 2 points in like 5 minutes of basketball play. And Alabama mounted like a 16-2 run and really took a hold of that game. And from then on, I think Alabama just climbed up the KenPom defensive ratings. And to me, this game boils down to who can be the most efficient offensively while running at the paces both teams like to run. Because once there's a set defense, I think the advantage goes to Alabama. And it'll be interesting to see if Alabama decides to slow their pace, even though that's kind of their MO of let's run and gun, let's shoot threes. And they play a very like analytically driven basketball. But it would seem almost more prudent for them to defend in a half court based off what KenPom says. So I'm curious, and I'm really excited to see the matchups, especially the individual one between Moses Moody and Herb Jones, who I assume will be guarding Moses Moody. And I think that'll be a really telling one, and to see how good Moses Moody is, especially for like draft people, because he's a lottery talent, and Herb Jones, in my opinion, is the best player in the SEC. Or like holistically, he may not lead them in scoring, but he leads them in every other category. And I think that it'll be really telling to see how good this Arkansas team is based off that matchup. Because if he doesn't have a great game, I don't see Arkansas having a great chance. And if he does, then they're going to have a lot of players that are lesser than Herb Jones trying to defend Moses Moody, and that will be a good sign for Arkansas.
Yeah, definitely. I really like the way you broke that down of the individual people. One of the things that stands out to me when I think about this game is the rebounding aspect of things. Both teams are ranked inside the top 20 in national overall rebounding numbers. Alabama is averaging 40.3 rebounds per game, which is 16th in the country, and Arkansas is averaging 40.4 rebounds per game, which is 13th in the country. I think that this is going to be a very interesting stylistic matchup of who can hit the glass harder, and if I think it's going to be very, very close in terms of who rebounds more. But I think whoever does is going to have an advantage in this one because they're going to give their offensive more chances, especially on the offensive rebound side of things. I think if you see one team kind of dominate the offensive glass and dominate that aspect of things and give their team second and maybe even third chances to score, they're going to have some proven success in this game, in my eyes at least. But with that being said, there's ways to overcome some things like that, and you're going to still have to shoot well. So if you're getting second and third opportunities, that usually might mean you're not shooting the ball at a fairly successful clip. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I think these two teams do a lot of the same things, but with that being said, it's a big proving ground for Arkansas. It's a big challenge, and any other keys to the game for you. I know we're not nearly done here, but just transitioning it back to some points that you want to make.
I think one thing that'll be big is that Arkansas is really deep. They have 7 players that average over 7 points, and I know I talked about Moses Moody and Herb Jones. What I anticipate is going to be a one-on-one matchup on the offensive side of the floor for Arkansas. But I'll be curious to see how that depth carries over, because not everyone in Alabama defends like Herb Jones, and I wonder if that the pressure that Moses Moody puts on a defense is what allows Arkansas to score well for others, or if it's really a totalitarian kind of approach, an egalitarian approach, excuse me, and how the team is able to score. If it varies by his production, how much he creates. And I'll be curious to see how both teams shoot the ball, because by now everyone knows to run Alabama off the line. It's just how effectively you do so. So I think a lot of it to me is going to go down to that individual matchup and see how the other players can score for Arkansas. And then on the flip side, it's how many good threes Alabama can create on a catch and shoot, as opposed to like a head fake sidestep, which is like being popularized in the NBA, and shooting threes just for the sake of shooting threes analytically. I want to see how many threes they can create on catch and shoots for drive and kicks. And I think that they have all the capacity to do so. It's just a matter of patience, because they play 5 out. And I enjoy watching them play offense. I sometimes think that they're too impatient, though. So I'll be very curious to monitor how those kind of, I wouldn't say matchups, but little intricacies in the game go.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you break this down a little bit further in terms of team stats, it's interesting as well. Both teams average over 80 points per game, which is very high. Alabama is sitting there at 80.9 points per game. Arkansas is at 82.5. Both teams shoot decently well from the field. Arkansas is slightly above Alabama at 45% from the field. Bama's at 43.7%. A little bit better free throw shooting from Arkansas, but conversely, a little bit worse 3-point shooting, which I think is going to be interesting moving forward. I think, would you say that you kind of believe that if Arkansas doesn't shoot well from the 3, or Alabama shoots better percentage wise from 3, they're going to have an uphill battle facing them in this one?
That's a tough question. I think that in order to have a game plan that slows Alabama is running them off the line. And as for Arkansas, you have to shoot close. Like, you don't have to shoot as many threes, but you have to shoot as good a percentage and maybe better. So to answer your question, I'm not sure, but I think you got to try to just maximize efficiency and make these shots as analytically hard, like mid-rangers, and not let them have open threes. What do you think about it? I haven't watched the last week of Alabama, but when I've last seen them, I feel like they shot a lot of contested threes or shot the first shot too often. And I think that can shoot them in the foot a little bit. But that said, that they're obviously good at what they do, as they're sixth in the country.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I agree with you for sure. I think 3-point shooting is going to play a factor in this game. I do not think it's going to be the most important aspect of the game. I think you can break it down and talk about a couple different things that are going to have a bigger impact. But if someone could shoot somewhere above 40% from three, would be astounding for both of these teams and give them a real leg up. It's not going to make or break your performance, but if Arkansas can go out and shoot 40 to 45% from three and make like 12 of them, like you can't say that's not going to have a huge impact on what happens throughout the course of the game, especially if they get hot early and start having that belief and that faith that their shots are going to go in. I think on the flip side, when you talk about Bama, I think if they shoot well from three and make some of their shots and don't settle, like you've been saying, like it seems to be the trend that they're kind of in of settling for their first opportunity instead of working for even a potentially better shot. If they don't settle and they hit that flow offensively, I think it kind of plays into what you said earlier about slowing the pace of the game down a little bit, because I think that's a real formula for success for Alabama, as crazy as it sounds, is trying to score less than they normally do, because I think they defend better. So with that being said, I think if they're able to slow the pace of their offense down, work for their good shots, and then they continue, and then they have that belief that if they get an open three, they're going to knock it down, Arkansas is going to be in big trouble.
Yeah, and sometimes I think they think their offense is their best defense, and sometimes it is. But I think this year, defense is their best offense. They're turning in transition, and that's when they're getting a lot of good threes. Like, I mean, I know a lot of coaches, especially some like more traditional coaches, prefer getting layups and fast breaks. But realistically, a lot of teams are analytically driven, and I'm not saying that it's right nor wrong, but they're going to shoot a lot of threes. A lot of their threes, which is so much of their approach, come from when they play good defense, more so than when they just kind of swing it and shoot a good shot, because they have some kind of like flamethrower type of guys. Like John Petty Jr. really loves to shoot the rock, and when he's hot, he's hot. Jaden Shackelford, your guy, is the same way. And I think, I'm not saying that they should play slowly, but I think they should play more meticulously in terms of the way that they look for a certain shot, as opposed to settling for the first like mediocre one, and then they let their defense determine the pace. If they're able to speed the thing up by causing turnovers, then by all means play fast. But if you're not causing turnovers, there's no need to play fast just to play fast.
Yeah, I agree with you. And when you look at the assist to turnover ratio, Arkansas with a slight edge here in this one, almost 15 assists per game to 12.9 turnovers per game. In terms of Alabama, they are just slightly in the positive assist to turnover ratio of 14.4 to 14.2. So they get away with that because they do cause turnovers and things like that with their defense. So watch out for that to be a factor as well. Any final thoughts about this matchup between Alabama and Arkansas?
I talk about Herb Jones guarding Moses Moody, but one that I think will be interesting is John Petty. John Petty's trying to match that type of production. I guess you could kind of chalk that up to John Petty and Jaden Shackelford versus Moses Moody's offensive production. And I think one player that on Arkansas that plays a big role defensively is Justin Smith. He's a transfer from Indiana, a grad transfer. He's a very physically gifted defender and athlete. So I'll be curious to see how he impacts the game with his size, and if he can. I'm not saying that he will outplay Herb Jones, but if he can do something similar for the Arkansas side, I think that gives him a really great chance to pull this upset on their home court. And I really do view this as a toss up. We'll be releasing our predictions that we recorded on a separate episode, but we both kind of saw this similarly. Where this game could go either way, and there those type of like individual matchups, if one can play beyond what their expected output is, that could really change the flow of the game.
Yeah, I agree. We did both end up taking Alabama in this one, and in the matchup between 1 and 2 in the SEC. It's going to be a great game going down. That's going to take place tonight, as this episode will come out the day of the game. It's going to be our first one that we release the day of a game for a preview. So let us know how you feel about that, with it being more current, and it's going to take place tonight. So enjoy it. 7 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Eastern time for this game here between number 6 Alabama traveling to number 20 Arkansas. Big one in the SEC. If you don't know now, you know. Enjoy it. And that's Leaf. I'm Scott. We will catch you next time.
Have a good one.